All right, we're going to call this meeting of the Board of Education to order. If everybody can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda? Ms. O'Neill, second by Ms. Stowe. Any other discussion on that? Ms. Rabin.
I'd like to amend the agenda to have both Winrose and food services move from written report to discussion.
Is there a second for that? All right. Any further discussion on that? Oh, no discussion. All right. So, you have another motion. Let's take we can only do one at a time. So all those in favor of moving the Winrose and food services into discussion items? 7-0. Thank you very much. Ms. Dayton.
I'd like to break out policy 4111 from the policy series that we're discussing tonight.
Actually, Ms. Dayton, just a point of order. You can actually do that when we have that. It's just a discussion tonight. It's not a vote. So you can make that motion at that time. If that's all right with you? Yeah. All right. So we're voting on the motion of the amended meeting agenda. All right. So all those in favor of approving the amended meeting agenda? Passes by 7-0. Thank you very much. All right, so the next order of business is the election of officers. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. O'Neill for that.
Okay, so we are about to elect the chair for the Board of Ed, and so I open the floor to any nominations. Ms. Dunn?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Bernstein to serve as our chairman for another year.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Do we have a second? Second. Okay. Are there any other nominations? So I'll close the nominations. And so if you'd all take the pad with your name on it and cast your vote this way to me, please. Okay, so the balloting is as such is Ms. Dayton for Peter Bernstein, Ms. Rabin for Peter Bernstein, Megan Olson for Peter Bernstein, Kathleen Stowe for Peter Bernstein for Peter Bernstein, and Kate Francis for Peter Bernstein, and I didn't fill out my ballot, but it's for Peter Bernstein, and we are missing Mr. Scher. So the vote is 7-0.
All right, so next up is the office of vice chair. Are there any nominations? I'll nominate Jennifer Dayton. Is there a second? Dr. Francis? Any additional nominations? Hearing none, we'll close the nominations. If you could write down on your pad as the board. For the office of vice chair, Jennifer Dayton for Jennifer Dayton. Good job. Megan Olson for Jennifer Dayton. Lauren Raven for Jennifer Dayton. Peter Bernstein for Jennifer Dayton. Kathleen Stowe for Jennifer Dayton. Caitlin Francis for Jennifer Dayton. And Barbara O'Neill for Jennifer Dayton. Congratulations, Jennifer. By a vote of 7-0, you are the vice chair. And again, Mr. Chair still absent. All right, next up is the Office of Secretary. Are there any nominations? Ms. Stowe.
I'm going to get at nominating people, so I'd like to nominate Ms. O'Neill for secretary again.
Is there a second? Second from Ms. Dayton. All right, any other nominations? Hearing none, if you wouldn't mind marking your pad and passing that forward. All right, for the Office of Secretary, Gaetan Francis for Barbara O'Neill, Barbara O'Neill for Barbara O'Neill, Kathleen Stowe for Barbara O'Neill, Warren Raven for Barbara O'Neill, Megan Olson for Miss O'Neill, very nice. Very good handwriting. Jennifer Dayton for Barbara O'Neill, and Peter Bernstein for Barbara O'Neill. 7-0, Barbara O'Neill is our secretary. Congratulations, and Mr. Chair still absent. Okay, with that, we're going to stay in our seats this year. I know that's unusual for everybody, but we're going to move on. The next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Is there a motion to accept our consent agenda? Dr. Francis? Ms. Dayton, seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda? 7-0, thank you very much. All right, we are ready for our school welcome. Mr. Petrowski, and I knew the score was 31-0. I don't know what it is now. There's a football game happening in our backyard.
Now I'm going to be out there helping supervise the Cardinal Crazies. Good evening, Chairman Bernstein, Superintendent Mayo, board members, cabinet, and guests. My name is Rick Piotrowski, I'm the interim headmaster of Greenwich High School. It's an honor to welcome you to Greenwich High School for tonight's board meeting. I'll keep my comments brief, but I'd like to take a moment to share some of the strengths of Greenwich High School and our plans how we continually innovate and improve. Excellence can be found around Greenwich all over the place. Participation in our AP classes is extremely high, and as of this past year, our mean score is at a 10-year high. For the class of 2018, over 57% of our seniors took and passed at least one AP exam during their 4-year career. In May of 2018, the U.S. News voted GHS the 7th best high school in Connecticut, 2nd best in Fairfield County, and nationally ranked us 373rd. Our Connecticut School Day SAT scores continue to show growth, especially in our subgroups. Excellence at Greenwich High School can be found beyond standardized measures, just to mention a few more accomplishments. The fall orchestra, chorus, and band concert were huge successes. Orchestra in particular has seen increased participation, performance, and parent support in the last couple of years. We're starting to wonder whether or not the packed stage is big enough for them now. That's a good problem to have. From comedy improv to Shakespeare to the long-awaited December performance of Rumors, our theater program is flourishing and providing a wonderful resource to the town. In athletics, as of the end of the regular season, not counting tonight's game, the varsity teams, fall teams, posted a ridiculous combined win-loss record of 94 wins, 36 losses, and 6 ties. That's over 70% winning percentage. Our math team is battling neck to neck with New Canaan High School for first place, and they have a chance to be a 10-time repeat, 10 times now, state champs. And our Science Fair Award winners keep rolling in. If you want the best in science research anywhere in the state of Connecticut, both public and private, Greenwich High School is the best choice. We don't rest on our laurels. As laid out in our school improvement plan, Greenwich High School is focused on providing students with a more personalized learning environment which will help students respond to failures, successes with reflection and resilience as shown in one of the capacities of our Vision of the Grad. Through consistent effort towards this goal, we are improving our already strong instruction, reviewing and refining our already rich curriculum, and increasing our already high levels of student engagement. There's more to share about the positive trends in student achievement, the excellence that permeates Greenwich High School, the efforts underway to help all students achieve at high levels, but those topics can wait for another day. Tonight, the board has business to attend to, and I'm honored that you're doing this great work here at Greenwich High School. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I got to say, every time I hear you talk about the high school, I really wish I had gone here. So, glad my kids are going to have that opportunity. All right. I might even almost be qualified to teach. Yeah, there's actually continuing ed happening in the building right now. If anybody's interested, we can get you a course guide. All right, next up is our public hearing. First up is the GHS student government. You guys found your way here okay?
Yes. Very confusing.
All right. Chairman Bernstein, Mr. Mayo, members of the board. Today you find yourself on the site of one of the greatest celebrations that may be witnessed in this world, GHS Homecoming. That may have been a moderate exaggeration, but it is with great pleasure that I'm here to report to you that Homecoming this year was a great success. Our Spirit Week began with USA Day, during which visitors to our school would have been astounded by the scale of patriotism worn by the student body. The phenomenal participation led into Tuesday with the crowd favorite Pajama Day. The following Wednesday was a new addition orchestrated by our VP of Special Concerns, Kenley Merritt. Students dressed up in just the wildest assortment of outfits for way back Wednesday, and pictures of teachers in their youth were sent out as a guessing game. It's funny how quick some people are to announce that they are past their prime. Thursday was senior dress-up day, in which class participation was as high as the percent of germs that every bottle of hand sanitizer ever claims to kill 99.99%. We witnessed an army of 20 sloths invade this very media center, and I honestly don't know how that's not a viral video yet. James and I and 6 others dressed up as military aviators. James was obviously the only one who did not need to buy any clothing for his class. In all seriousness, though, Amazon.com probably had a 300% increase in sales over the course of Spirit Week. However, thanks to a particularly annoying nor'easter, the football game had to be moved from Saturday to Thursday, whilst the parade was canceled. Though the stadium was packed for the football game, our great crescendo of school spirit ended in a rather anticlimactic fashion. This, as well as the confusion regarding the change of schedule, resulted in poor attendance at the pep rally and the same attendance at the homecoming dance as in previous years, which we were hoping to increase. If I wore glasses, it would be at this point that I would dramatically take them off like this, set my elbows down, and I would say, here's the deal. A goal that has united the GHS XCOM this year has been to change the school climate culture for the better, make GHS a more supportive and collaborative learning environment. That begins with school spirit, and the low attendance that we have seen at certain homecoming events, especially pep rally in recent years, speaks to certain problems being present in school culture. If we can't get students excited about a homecoming dance, how can we get them excited about learning? This will be the issue that the GHS XCOM will be pondering heavily in the coming months. We now have in the works a plan to try another Spirit Weekend dance later in the year with modifications that hopefully inspire a greater sense of unity and belonging within every cardinal at the school. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board and distinguished guests. Homecoming has come and gone, and as you've heard, it was a spectacular success. With one of the biggest events for Student Gov just behind us, we've started to shift our focus to different areas, one of which is class events and fundraisers. The Student Government Executive Committee is made up of 5 student body officers and 4, currently 5 due to a 50-50 split vote among the sophomores, class officers, myself included. In addition to our student government responsibilities, we also serve our classes. Events we help with range from field trips to prom, but all are important for a positive school environment. However, in order to have fun events like prom, it turns out you need this money stuff everyone's talking about. With this in mind, all of our class presidents make sure that we are fundraising to support our classes. The sophomores are currently working on a drawing as well as a fundraiser with Vineyard Vines in order to capitalize on the last-minute holiday shopping in December. Supporting a GHS class sounds like a good enough cause for me to wait until last minute to shop again this year. The junior class is currently doing a series of restaurant fundraisers around the town with various restaurants. This is always a reliable fundraiser and one of my personal favorites because it gives me an excuse to eat out with friends instead of doing homework. Finally, the senior class has started work on the SRO. SRO, or Standing Room Only, is the senior variety show we put on in March and is our main fundraiser as a class. We attempt to get as many seniors as possible to join in and help in a number of ways, both on and off stage. While Alex and I are both not dancers or singers, I will definitely be dancing and performing, and I assume he will be joining me on stage if you guys want to watch that. Overall, we will use the month of November to square away our class events as well as shift our focus as student government prepares for the next big months and big events. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, next up, GEA, Carol Sutton.
So they keep us pretty busy here, so I was writing up to like 2 minutes ago, and the speech starts out strong and then kind of ends in some random thoughts. So good evening, Principal Interim Headmaster Piotrowski, Chairman again Bernstein, board members, Superintendent Mayo, Cabinet, and members of the community. My name is Carol Sutton, and I'm honored to represent 900 members of the Greenwich Education Association. And with Thanksgiving just around the corner, it's an opportune time to thank the board, all of you, and especially for the new old officers, and to congratulate you on your accomplishments. GEA is thankful and appreciates your volunteer service to this district. And as an elected officer myself, who answers to 900 people, I can only imagine the challenge you have answering to all the constituents that you have. And I applaud you for that and the job that you do. I just want to say thank you this evening to Irene Parisi and her team, who put together a successful professional learning conference on Election Day. There was a lot of energy within Greenwich High School. A lot of people commented favorably on the day, on the organization of the day. And I know that her team plans to use the feedback to make the next one even better. So I just have a couple comments on the budget, even though it's not a budget meeting. This is my 6th budget, so Peter Scher and Barbara are ahead in that area, probably on budgets for sure. And each budget cycle, I really find myself wondering why this process is so hard. And thinking that why is it, and that it should not be. In my world, when I'm thinking like that, I think it should be easy. The superintendent and his team carefully and thoughtfully construct a budget that will provide the students of Greenwich and the teachers of Greenwich and the families of Greenwich with the best education they possibly can. In my fantasy world, the board trusts their professionalism, experience, knowledge of best practice, and fiscal acumen. They seek to understand the proposal as a reflection of the priorities and values of the district. They pass it, and then they get out there and advocate for it with other town bodies and citizens, kind of like the cheerleaders. In some places, they would have to go in front of all the citizenry because board budgets are passed in a referendum. So again, this is a little bit random, but GEA implores you to think about making it a little bit easier, to trust the superintendent and his team, to not get lost in the weeds. You always say you don't want to be there, and you always say that you don't belong there. Okay, we need you to pass a budget that truly reflects the priorities and values of our district. We can do that, and I don't think it has to be difficult. So in a recent email to the faculty, Ralph concluded the message by saying that the difference between Greenwich and other districts is its amazing staff. And he was including teachers and everyone, faculty, everyone you see. And I happen to agree. Greenwich is number 4 in the state based on the Connecticut Next Generation Accountability Index. Mr. Piotrowski mentioned tonight that Greenwich High School is number 7 in the state as well by several measures. And I invite anyone to take the bet that the schools that are in the higher positions than us, I want to bet you that they're less diverse and that they do not have 25% plus of the student body falling into one or more category of significant need. We are an awesome district by any measure you put out. And I'm really worried on how we're going to maintain and grow this district with a budget that includes nothing extra. You guys said it. It includes nothing extra. Nothing for innovation, nothing for the awesomeness that we have. Nothing extra for our students who are coming to us with more severe behavioral and psychological issues than ever before. We've said it 100 times. Nothing for assistant deans, who I've tried to tell you are a lifeline for our students. Nothing for a rainy day. And there are going to be rainy days. I don't even understand it. And at the budget meeting, you know, you're charging your one employee, the superintendent, find us the 0.8. Find us that 0.8, because we're chasing the 2%. I don't even understand. And then something else that doesn't add up when you're thinking about money and how it's being spent. GSHS teachers this year have 30 less minutes of instruction per day. While the school goes into basically, essentially a big study hall so that athletes don't miss instruction. How much instruction, curriculum development, collaboration, innovation could you buy for what it cost each day for opportunity block? Yes, the athletes are missing less school, but what about everybody else? And there are very few teenagers who don't like a soft ending to their day. So I get why kids might really appreciate having opportunity block. But what are the teachers doing? Checking passes, monitoring the hallway. They don't do those things at any other time of day in Greenwich High School and never have, because we have freedom with responsibility. Except during opportunity block, when everyone has to have a purple pass in order to be able to go see a teacher. Or when a student is in an opportunity block and says, you know, at the last minute I realize I really want to see my teacher because I have a test. No, you have to stay here because you're signed up for this opportunity block. Transportation. Okay, are you aware of the transportation problem since the change in school start time? Transportation that costs more. Each and every day, about 1/3 of the Greenwich High School buses are late. Kids are on those buses who are entitled to free and reduced lunch. And they have to choose whether to be on time or get food. And that includes PSAT day, by the way, when 13 buses were late and there wasn't a cloud in the sky and there were no seniors on the road because they got to come in late. Seriously, people, this is a fantastic district. I've been here for what seems like forever, except Ralph's been here for longer than me. Okay? But I'm left sometimes truly baffled by what we allow to happen and what we choose to pay for and not to pay for. Thank you.
Next up, PTA Council.
Good evening, Superintendent Mayo, Chairman Bernstein, Headmaster Vietrowski, members of the board, cabinet, community. My name is Karen Hirsch, President of PTA Council, and with me is Cricket Diamond, First VP. First off, congratulations to the newly re-elected officers of the board. We look forward to working continuously with you. And while it's November, it typically means gearing up for family time and Thanksgiving feasts. It also means it's the start of budget season. Now that the superintendent's budget for FY 2019 and 2020 has been presented, we welcome the opportunity to engage with the board as well as the BET and RTM to support essential capital investments in our schools, our children's education, and ultimately the fabric of our community. We support the district and board's effort to ensure that our schools are safe, healthy, and intellectually stimulating environments for our students and staff. It's imperative to not only fund the required maintenance, but also necessary to invest in the future of our schools, both in infrastructure and in educational practice. Becoming a high-performing district takes many years of hard work. There's no magic formula, no single thing a school can do to ensure high student performance. So it begs us to ask, what does it take to rise to the top? It takes vision, a willingness to be creative, and it takes funding. As only a small percentage of the operational budget is earmarked to keep current programs and services level, it's imperative that we do not cut anything that would affect the teaching and learning that is taking place within the classrooms. For instance, the budget highlights an anticipated reduction in the expenditures due to the elimination of the Windrose and Community Connection space rental, but it doesn't include a discussion as to where we will house the current students. If you're considering GHS, remember, we're already overcrowded here. And even though it is a discussion about 26 students, they each have a different need from one another. And tonight's Windrose report discusses a program redesign created to meet the learning needs of each student in order to create a personalized roadmap for success. It is this type of creative thinking that is needed for the approximately 9,000 students in our district. And the question is, do we only want to be a high-achieving district, or do we want to have an effective and successful schools that consider the strengths and weaknesses of each student in order to help them reach and expand their own individual potentials? The more effective we are in giving our students what they need, the more likely it is that we will continue to be both highly effective and a high-performing district.
As parents are their child's first and often most important teacher, it behooves us to work collaboratively with the schools to support our children's education. As we believe parent involvement and volunteerism correlate positively with student achievement, we encourage you to continue engaging parents in discussion and to identify ways to increase their input when making critical decisions. A few opportunities immediately come to mind. More in-depth information on curriculum, more involved updates on personalized learning, and increased opportunities to collaborate on health and wellness issues for our children. For instance, when it comes to curriculum, parents are eager to learn more about the playbook or teacher's handbook that is often discussed. We would welcome a parent version with less educational buzzwords or ed speak so that we could be more collaborative in the education process. Parents want to know that the same curriculum is being delivered at a similar pace across the district, and as we often do not know exactly what is going on in the classroom, they want to know how their lessons are being delivered. Parents want to know that there is commonality between classrooms and between schools. We know that collaborative work is happening, but it often seems that parents are not included as part of that collaboration. When it comes to personalized learning, there have recently been a spate of articles questioning whether the benefits of digital classrooms outweigh the risks. So much so that some districts are now debating taking 90-degree turn and removing one-to-one devices from classrooms, leading some parents here to express concerns about how much time their kids spend on digital devices for school every day. Parents are not opposed to change. In fact, we often welcome the new and creative educational options being offered to our students. But it is important that we not only know when, but why these changes in the classroom are happening and how they benefit our children. These are just a small subset of questions shared with Council. We look forward to engaging with you to create more opportunities to increase parent understanding, involvement, and participation. And as such, would like to thank Jen Lau for discussing ECRIS with interested parents and SIP reps at the recent Academic Excellence Committee meeting. It would be impossible to quantify the positive impact that the thousands of volunteer hours put in by our committees has had, but we believe student success is best achieved through the dedication and collaboration of the many parents, teachers, and administrators who work side by side, and we look forward to sharing more in future meetings. We end this evening with a quote from writer Cynthia Shoshana Ozick in honor of Veterans Day and the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday. We often take for granted the very things that most deserve our gratitude. So with that, We want to thank the board and the administration for their continued service to our shared goals, to our students and educators, and our public school families. We wish you all a well-deserved Thanksgiving break. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next up is our community comments. Karen, is there a sign-up sheet?
I did not get it. Sorry.
I don't know. Is there anybody that signed up to speak? All right, is there anybody that wishes to address the board on an agenda or non-agenda item? This might be a first. All right, it is blank. Well, hearing none, Brian, stay down in the back. There's cookies outside for you, friend. All right, hearing none, thank you all for coming. Wow, nice job. We're happy to have you. I know, exactly. We will be moving on to our monthly reports, starting with Mr. Mayo.
Since we are here tonight at Greenwich High School, I thought it would be appropriate to give the board an update on the opportunity block. It is important to note that our interim headmaster continues to conduct focus groups and meetings regarding the opportunity block. He meets with our student government, GEA liaisons, our PTA, as well as the Learning Planning Council, which is made up of instructional staff, learning facilitators, and administrators here at Greenwich High School. Mr. Piotrowski has been very methodical in implementing the opportunity block since the beginning of the school year. Beginning on Monday, November 5th, the athletic teams that practiced outside were released at 2:45 to go to their practices. This was initiated because of safety reasons as the clocks returned back on November 4th. The earlier sunset decreased the amount of available daylight for practice. I happened to be driving by Greenwich High School last Wednesday, and I stopped and went onto the field and checked with the head coach, and I said, "How's it going?" He said that the strategy was working well for his team. Mr. Piotrowski also indicated that the opportunity block offerings began on October 8th. This meant that students were able to choose from 80 different offerings other than a study period for the last 30 minutes of the day. Examples of offerings are chess club, anthropology of food, Broadway appreciation, and the Cyber Patriot Club. Starting tomorrow, students are going to be given an opportunity to drop or add an opportunity block offering. Mr. Piotrowski and his team will continue to make changes as they gain additional information from all constituents. Last night, Tuesday evening, the elementary principals, in conjunction with Ann, Irene, and Kim, held a very successful kindergarten spotlight meeting. The meeting attracted a standing room only crowd of over 165 parents. The vast majority identified themselves as parents of children not yet enrolled in the Greenwich Public Schools. The Greenwich Public Schools distinguished kindergarten teacher, Sarah Harris, spoke about a typical kindergarten experience in our schools, in addition to presentations on the Greenwich Public Schools curriculum and magnet school offerings and application process. The meeting was well received by parents in attendance. The decision to hold this spotlight was to provide parents with an opportunity to hear about our public school offering, private school applications, and our acceptance. Because our Greenwich Public Schools kindergarten orientation occurs traditionally after private school acceptance have been received. Thank you to the cabinet for that last night. It was a great, and also to Jen Benzavango and Mark D'Amico. Coscop School Road relocation update. After a week-long school closure due to a water leak and flooding, Coscop School students returned to school, as you all know, on October 15th, with kindergarten relocated to Parkway and grades 1 and 2 relocated to Old Greenwich School. Grades 3 to 5 remained at Coscop School. Coscop School reconstruction began on Monday, November 12th. Materials for the finishing and millwork components of the project have been selected and ordered. District administration has directed Werner Construction to prioritize completion of the classrooms on the first and second floor. The project remains on schedule for completion in time to return grades K through 2 back to their classrooms over the holiday recess and for students to return to their classrooms following the break. The media center and the art room may take a little longer to complete due to the extensive damage and additional finishing and millwork required for those two spaces. District and school administration continue to meet regularly to address any challenges or needs. Planning for the move back to school has begun as well. Air quality testing results remain within acceptable standards. Updates will continue to be released weekly on or about Wednesday each week until their students return to their classrooms. In fact, Mrs. Eve is going to hit the button right now, and this update is going to go out to the entire community. And Finally, just a note, one of our employees, Jane Marie Lockett, received the 2018 Employee of the Year Honorable Mention Award this morning at the Town of Greenwich Employee Recognition Service Award. Jane Marie's been working with our food services department for the last 33 years.
Nice. Congratulations. All right, it's reports of officers, committees, and liaisons. Start down this end. Ms. Olson.
Yes, DTAC, I just want to say these dates one more time. That's the Distinguished Teachers Awards Committee. The nominations are due March 7th, and nomination instruction packets are available in December, soon. And the 2019 Distinguished Teachers will be announced in April, and the award ceremony will be on May 7th at 4:30 at Central Middle School. The important date here is March 7th is when the nomination packets are due. You can pick them up as early as December.
Ms. Raymond.
Ralph and I participated in the XCOM student government meeting on Monday, and it's kind of fun because we're both graduates of Greenwich High School, and we can compare our similarities and our differences. We talked about vaping, and we had our experiences where we were able to smoke in the high school back in our day. But I did ask the students, not that we did it, but students were able to do it. Other kids, yes. Now I'm blushing. But I did ask the students to think about, I talked about our budget. Carol, thank you for also talking about the budget, because they weren't exactly sure. I said we were looking for efficiencies, and they didn't necessarily translate that to cost cutting. So they're thinking about ideas on if they had some suggestions for the budget to make it more efficient.
Interesting. Ms. Dayton, I think you're going somewhere tomorrow.
Everyone at CAVE has worked extremely hard for half a year to put on a really tremendously important conference. Professional development is extremely useful for all board members, regardless of how senior they are, how many terms they've had, and I encourage everyone to attend. Thursday is the delegate assembly. If you have feedback, I'm leaving tomorrow morning. I have got 0 feedback from anyone on the board. You're welcome to still submit it. If you want to email me, I'll read your email. Friday and Saturday are the conference dates. Saturday, I want to thank Irene Parisi for being willing to construct a wonderful workshop that really highlights our district and raises its stature statewide. And I really look forward to being a part of that. Thank you.
Ms. Stowe.
I'd like to give an update on the Super Search Committee. We've been very busy meeting with candidates. I'm personally excited about the number and the quality of people that we've seen. And I'd like to announce that we hope to identify our permanent superintendent by the end of this year. Thank you.
Dr. Francis.
This calendar year. That is a big distinction.
I had a liaison for the Greenwich Alliance for Education. We had a great meeting today, and I wanted to highlight a couple things. First, can't go without mentioning Turkey Trot coming up. Yeah, gotta do it if you want to get your t-shirt. Coming up a little later on will be Trivia Night, which is also another great event, but on a slightly more interesting, we had a great presentation from United Way, and it's a really wonderful program that the Alliance is partnering with them on, which is the Early Childhood Achievement Gap Solutions Program, ECAGS, as they say, which is a really amazing program looking at trying to help the achievement gap at a point when you're probably going to have the most impact on that, which is really from birth. And in fact, they try to get involved in families and with women prior to delivery to really have an impact on parents as teachers, so helping them really function within the day and within their lives and to help support their children and to decrease issues of trauma and other kinds of bad experiences that could impact things and improving education at home. And they're also having a person think one or two, I forget, who are going into the preschools to really help improve the quality and help teachers look at new ways of addressing needs within the preschool environment. And so it's really a very exciting program that's ongoing. And they're looking at data, looking at results, looking at STAR and third grade testing as that rolls out in the future to really look and see the impact of this to support it, hopefully as a long-term program for us. So I think it's wonderful. One of the things that they were asking was really to try and help recruit families for this. And so they're trying in any way that you can to get the word out because that is obviously the first step in terms of really getting that engagement before you can have an impact. So if anyone has any community connections or other things, to just remember that this program does exist through the United Way and to encourage people, if you hear them wondering about it, to engage because we do think it'll have a wonderful effect on our community.
Thank you. Barbara, do you have a policy update?
So when they're sending these, United Way, they're sending people in, they're sending them into the private preschools. Isn't that the profession, the private preschools, right?
Barbara, do you have any update, or are you going to do that as part of the policies? Do you have any update, or are you going to do it as part of the policy? Okay. I'll just give a brief new lab update. Yes, on time and on budget. Thank you very much. But also, it's amazing. So the building itself is sealed now. They actually have started painting in classrooms, doing ceilings in classrooms, the millwork, that's all like the cabinets and everything else, and the flooring starting next week. So progress has been just, it's been amazing to watch. I'm there probably once or twice a month, and it's just gone crazy. So now everything is happening inside the building. It's very, very cool. And thank you to Mr. Mayo for pressing the button. We've made the next request for reimbursement from the state. I think that was 3.8. Did I get that right? Or 3.2? Somewhere in the 3. Anyway, we are ahead of the game in terms of where we are in the collection, which is really nice. Yes, he had to drive all the way to Hartford to press the button to request the money. But for that amount of money, it was worth the 84 miles. Also, I just wanted to alert the board that on election day, I might have been perusing a PTA bake sale, and a young constituent asked me about the homework policy at elementary school. He said he had a lot. His mother said he didn't have very much. I was very confused, and I also referred him to the principal in the building, so hopefully we don't hear about that again. Anyway, I just wanted to share that anecdote. I thought it was very funny that he recognized the fact that I am on the board and he could talk to me. That said, I got 2 letters today from students at Eastern Middle School asking about various subjects, and in fact, I know Mr. Ralph Mayo is going in to talk to that class. So this is the fun stuff we get to do with students, and interaction is very positive and valuable. And with that, we will move on to our discussion items. So the first item is the high school course offerings. Mr. Mayo.
Yes, Mr. Bernstein, this is a kind of light item. There's no attachments. The administration has decided to hold off on proposing any new courses for fiscal year 20. We have multiple reasons for that, but we're going to hold off proposing courses for next year. We're also going through the course of study guide to eliminate courses that are no longer being offered.
Any discussion on that? Ms. Rabin.
Will we get non-notified of courses that get deleted? Is that part of our policy/procedure?
That would be coming in January when the course of study is being presented, so it'll be redlined as in the past. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion on that item? Thank you very much. I know we always are looking for new offerings. I will say I just recently gave my copy of the course of study guidebook to a parent of an 8th grader who was considering middle school, and his reaction was, wow, I really want to go to your small university. So that was fantastic. All right. High school, yeah. Well, he has an 8th grader. Anyway. All right. The next item is the Board of Education Town of Greenwich grounds maintenance merger. So I don't know how many people in the room actually know that Parks and Rec maintains our grounds. So basically the playgrounds, all of the outside exterior of the buildings are maintained by Parks and Rec. If you actually happen to open the document, you'll find that this was done 20 years ago. As far as I can tell, the Board of Ed has never revisited this to see how it's working. Thought it was worthy of a discussion and probably a look, because quality of some of our fields, the condition of some of the fields, especially the elementary schools, is a subject of a lot of discussion. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you want to make some comments about this.
Yeah, I really I do agree with Peter about the quality of the maintenance, and I'd like to see us review this document and see if we can get a better, put it in, I don't know how to put it any better way, get a better deal for Parks and Recreation.
So my way of thinking, there are a couple of items that I really would like to have looked at. I was thinking if other board members wanted to tack onto that list, we could ask the superintendent to take the first pass at that and then come back to us so that we could have a discussion as to where we want to go. Mrs. O'Neill.
I think it would be, first place to start might be to have a complete list of all the fields that belong to the school system that we're responsible for. And I agree, this is a document that needs vast overhauling, especially the scheduling of our fields. Besides the upkeep, there's a number of things. The fees that are charged by the town for the use of our fields, and the fees that we are charged to use fields that are not town fields. So there's a lot to be discussed and updated with this. The fields are in terrible shape, and we need to figure out a better system of upkeep, renewal, and improvement.
Ms. Stowe.
I'm excited to see this. I didn't think that we would be ever revisiting this, and it is important because I know I've sort of said before, I've been a coach, and so I've been very disappointed often. And I've also, gone to many games with my kids. And I would like to know, I guess, what else, and we've seen a little bit, Barbara, through the Parks and Recs Fields Committee, but if I could see, I guess, all of the fields in town, not just the school fields. So, because we do sometimes use other fields, is my understanding, and this is what this, and we get charged for it, right? Like the Coscob Field, Laughlin, things like that. So I guess if we could look at all of the hours, do we also have access to all the hours?
The Parks and Rec should actually keep that.
That it's used, and then the break in between, and we could figure out the supply and demand then, right? And
Right.
that's important, but I mean, it'll come down to the fact that we don't have enough, right? But that's okay for us to understand that.
One of the questions I actually had was about how the town is using our fields outside of our school use. So whether it's the athletic leagues or not, how much revenue they're getting from that versus how much they're charging us to use places like Coscob Field. I believe we also get charged to use Dorothy Hamill. So it would be good to know what that is, because at the end of the day, you're taking from one pocket to the other, but that's in our budget and going back again, so it's a little odd. Ms. Olson.
I'm just curious if we're charging different amounts at different fields depending on who they're being rented to. So is a nonprofit organization or the Boys and Girls Club being charged a different amount than private coach? So not only the hours, but also what that fee is.
And we're going to let Ross Hand catch up for a second. Oh, that's on video. So Michael's getting into it. Mrs. Denny.
I'd like in this document for there to be a clearly spelled out dispute resolution process. What happens when anyone in the administration feels that one of the services performed either isn't being done in a timely way or an effective way? What exactly happens next? What is the convening of the bodies? What is the process for resolving the issue? How long is it supposed to take before there's a resolution? And I want to put in a plug for snow removal on the track. We heard, not this year, but last year, a lot about how that seems to be a neglected area. For Public Works to take another look at the track would serve our constituents well.
I'm also curious, I know there were a number of employees that were transferred over to Parks and Rec at the time. This happened 20 years ago. I've heard someone from Parks and Rec say there are 3 of them left. Not 3 bodies, but 3 positions. So I'd like to know how they are staffing the upkeep of the school grounds, because if it's not effective, either they ask for more resources, or maybe we need to look at how this is actually going to be handled in the future. Mrs. O'Neill.
I think it behooves us to take a look at the Parks and Rec budget when it comes out so then that we could have better information which to pursue some of our questions.
So,
Lastly, and then DPW's role in this, I don't know if we really need much information on that, but basically they're just doing snow removal, right? Is that my understanding? And I guess we should just confirm that we're happy with it, but I haven't heard any complaints there, except for the tractor that you just mentioned, except for that.
any other questions? And I'm sure as Ralph goes through this, he's probably got a couple of his own as well. Mrs. Raven.
Back to the snow plowing, there's a perception that it plowed against Misa's contributing to the orchestra week.
Yeah, so maybe we need to look into how they're plowing and put in some, I don't know, big steel plates or something. Yeah. I'll look up the word. All right, any other discussion on this? And I just want to check, Ralph, you feel like you have clear direction from the board as to where to go with it? Lots of direction, very good. And if you can, if obviously you can give an update if you're not done just during your super report next time, or we can always add it back to the agenda. But ultimately, I think what we'd like to do is have an action item at some point, whether we need to direct you or the administration to actually sit down with the town and hammer out the go forward. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yeah. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, everyone. All right, next item is policy. It's a first read. Mrs. O'Neill. Jennifer, if you could hang on for a second. Because we can talk about whether we need the motion or not, but why don't we let Barbara present the item first and then we can talk about it.
So tonight we have a number of policies for the first read, and I appreciate everybody understanding that we are moving forward. I try and send them to you as soon as we get them approved, even before the official board docs come out. They have been vetted by the committee and by various people who, Mr. Stacy and so on, who have experience with this or it impacts their department or whatever. And I would ask you to approve the policies as presented.
Okay, so discussion. Ms. Deaton.
This is just the first read. It's not for approval. And I'd like to break out policy 4112 from the rest of them, which I feel is a significant departure from past practice and shouldn't be approved as a matter of course. I have no objections to anything in the remaining policies in this package.
So what we can do and what we have done previously, Jennifer, is refer specific concerns back to the Policy Governance Committee so that when these come back as a discussion item, they either have pulled it out on their own accord or they've presented an alternative policy draft to the board. So I don't know that you'd necessarily need a motion so much as asking Barbara and the Policy Governance Committee, which happens to be on this side of the table tonight, whether they would mind doing it. Because I would like to talk about the substance of it a little bit, so if you want to. Go ahead.
I think a discussion on the substance is fine, but within committee, my understanding is that there wasn't a unanimous view of which of the two policies was best. So, I also want to bring up the point that my best advice to the board is to tackle this in a retreat where we can have an in-depth discussion instead of wordsmithing. It's not the words that count, it's the underlying change of process that matters. But I'm not stopping any discussion tonight. I would just prefer to have it in a retreat.
Completely understood. Dr. Francis.
I'm wondering if it's worth, for those who might not remember which number it is, and for the general discussion, to just kind of give a two-sentence review of what we think the issue is.
So, Mrs. O'Neill, if you want to do that. First policy and that.
So policy 4112, the policy has to do with personnel and appointments. And in the policy as written, there are two options. And one of the options talks about, well, it's about hiring. And so one of the options says the superintendent is authorized to hire administrators, blah, 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 blah. The superintendent shall, so it's up to the superintendent, that's version A, and version B says, it involves the board. Thank you. It involves the board making a decision. It doesn't say at what point the board makes a decision or how. So those are the two options, leaving it strictly to the superintendent to hire everybody, or to have some board involvement. And it varies across the state.
So I just want to make sure I understand this. These are two options that CAVE has presented. However, we are free to offer an option, correct?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so I'm not in love with either one of these, just to get to the substance of it. One is basically superintendent off over here on an island. The other one is the board in all certified staff, which I think is too far. I'm thinking probably somewhere in the middle. I know we've looked at this before, so to the extent we can dust off the research as to what other districts do, I think that might be helpful to bring forward when we talk about this again. You probably have it. I probably have it in my email, but I'm not as good at finding old emails as you are. Ms. Olson.
Yeah, I also agree with Ms. Dayton in the sense that this is something that really should be set apart from the other policies because it is such a hot topic. I'd like to look at it more closely as well and revisit it. I think that my concern would be, trying not to get too in the weeds. I think it's a slippery slope if all of a sudden the Board of Education, who may or may not as individual members have a background in education, be involved in the hiring of administration. So I think because it's not clear, I see a lot of pitfalls with that option. So definitely something to table. I would, if it doesn't need a motion, then it doesn't need a motion, but I would second Ms. Dayton's motion to set this one apart.
Dr. Francis?
So my personal view, sort of separate from the BTC committee, is I do have concerns about the Board of Education becoming involved in hiring. The second thing I would say is, depending on sort of the tone of where we end here, what we have done on other subjects that we felt were bigger subjects or ones that might take more time or discussion or get sort of bogged down a bit, is to sort of add it to my list, which I have been keeping, of those items that have come up in policy discussion that we feel like, yeah, these are going to be big ones, and if we stop for each of these, we're never going to get through this process. And that, while it may be another year away, sort of once we get through that, or at any point when we feel like we want to do that, to then say, well, here are the 10 things that have come up. Which of these do we want to tackle in what order? And it may turn out, if we feel like we don't come to a consensus, that this might be one of the ones that we do. And what we've done is sort of kept the policy pretty much representing where we are now, and then keeping this on our list of ones to come back to review. So depending on sort of how people feel about it, that may be another way to address this.
Ms. Stowe.
I just was going to offer too that I too personally feel, and I've said this from the beginning, that we hire the CEO, the superintendent, and then if we hire the right superintendent, the superintendent chooses his or her staff. And so I obviously support, therefore, very clearly one of the options, and I'd be confident in whomever the permanent superintendent is, that they would make the right decisions of that, because we're choosing that individual.
Mrs. O'Neill.
I didn't think we were going to be discussing it, but anyway, a different point of view is that many of the bodies in town have a say about who's hired as an administrator. You've got parents, and PTA, TEA, GOSA, teachers. None of them are elected by the community, and therefore it would be, in my opinion, a mistake not to have some say in those that we hire. You have all sorts of other people with different backgrounds. We are the ones that have been elected to represent the whole district. And I think being at least part of that process is an important part of our duties.
Ms. Dayton.
The way it works in some Connecticut districts is that the entire Board of Education is presented with one finalist after all of the work of Barbara's committee that she just described is completed, that gives the Board of Education an on switch or an off switch. It doesn't inform the board what the range of candidates were, what's the comparison to other choices that the community looked at. We only get the opportunity to see the last person standing. And if we say no, I think it's a very difficult situation to extricate ourselves from. I believe that when we hire a superintendent, we put our trust and faith in that person to choose a team that will support him and the district. So again, it's not the time tonight. I believe we have a long agenda. I'd like to tackle it in a retreat. And we have a board member absent as well.
All right, since it's a discussion item, what I would recommend is when we come back in December, and this is an action item, if you want to make that motion, that would be an appropriate time. In the meantime, if we can dig out the research on what the other districts are doing, I will look through my inbox if you do the same, and we may be able to ask Cabe. I'll see a lot of them this weekend. I'll be standing in the hallway taking calls from members from other districts. All right, with that, we move on to, Mrs. O'Neill, do you want to talk about anything else? Nope. Do you want to catch up? You good? Okay. All right, next up is I know this is going to sound crazy, the 2020-2021 school calendar. Parents, kids, are you paying attention in the back? Mr. Mayo.
So we have a draft here of the school calendar, which contains 180 days for students, 187 days for staff. The last day for students will be one day before the last day for staff. The draft school calendar contains 3 full day professional development days, 1 before school starts, and 1 before school starts for students, and 2 half days for professional development for staff. There are 5 snow days built into the calendar as presented.
Discussion. Mrs. O'Neill.
I hate calendars and I hate calendar discussions. So I'm just going to ask, is there anything different about this calendar than prior ones? Are there any changes in the number of professional days or whatever?
Mrs. Olson.
Yeah, it's the same.
It's the same, okay, thank you.
I think, Columbus Day is on here, but I think I already know the reason for this. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the big college weekend, weekend? So Columbus Day is on the calendar as a PD, a professional development day for teachers, so that students, after you go visit colleges, students of all ages. I think that was the reasoning behind that.
Just a quick point of view from all the teachers in the district who are also parents. Just to put that out there, they'll be coming to work that day, so they won't be able to go on those college visits if they happen to have high school age children. So something, not to change it, but something to think about, to be cognizant of in the future.
That's what their personal days are for.
They're not allowed.
Yeah, they are.
Not
Okay. PTAs that are in the room, raise your hands. Hi, PTAs. This is a great document to go back and share with everybody, because this is a good time to let us know if there's something on here that you spot that we haven't. And that does happen. So if there's a weird holiday that I'm supposed to be celebrating and I haven't paid attention to, or something else, if you could take a look, let us know before the December meeting if you spot something, so we can make that change. Any other discussion on this item? Nope. All right, well, we will see that again in December. Thank you. All right, next up is the 2019-2020. See, I can grasp that timing. Board of Education meeting calendar. Mr. Mayo.
Yeah, there's a great explanation of, there's notes and comments on our meeting calendar for, the Board of Education's meeting calendar for 1920. So if you flip the page, you can see it. I'm not going to try and hit all these bullets, but we're trying to go through the same type of meeting calendar we had this year.
Comments, questions, discussion? I did run this against my calendar. I didn't see any strange holidays that I'm supposed to be celebrating. All right. Good. This again will come up at our December meeting. Okay, so next up would be Windrose, which we moved from our written report. So I don't know, Ralph or Mary, if you want to say anything about Windrose or just want to launch into questions.
I'll start with just our last business meeting. One of our board members asked that we give a bit of a history on Windrose, so that's why the packet was put into the on the agenda.
Mrs. O'Neill.
So what I was looking for, well, it was Mr. Sherritt's question, but it was a good question. Windrose is an evolution of programs. So what came before Windrose, because I believe there were 2 programs that did what Windrose does now, and what the focus of those programs were. I think this is like the 3rd iteration of this program in a fairly short period of time. So that's what I wanted to know. Who are we serving? You know, what was the goal? And how has that changed, and who are we serving now?
Well, we invited both Lorraine, Termy, and Mary Ford to answer those questions.
Oh, front seat here. Okay. Yes, we did. Good evening, everybody. I do have a little research in terms of the programs. CLP, the Community Learning Program, started 44 years ago in 1974 at Christ Church. Through the years, it moved from Christ Church to Glenville Civic Center, and then it was changed its name, and it was in the original media center on the other side of the high school in 1981. From 1983 to 1996, it was an all-day program in the old administration wing, which is now Cantor, the lower Cantor. They were there for 13 years. They moved then to Parkway School for a year. They moved to Sacred Heart, then to St. Catherine's the year 2012, 2013, and that's where that ends. Arch was around for 27 years, and Arch served students mostly with IEPs, whereas CLP originally did not. Okay? That was the major distinction back then. Arch started in the Havamaya kitchen, so 27 years ago. It moved to Bank Street, then it went to a synagogue on Stanwich Road, to Dundee School, to Bank, and then to Millbank in 2007 to 2013. In 2013, the programs merged at St. Catherine's. And from 2013 to the present, we've been at St. Catherine's. And the merge happened because the kids were very similar in their needs, and both programs started to change the population. So CLP started taking kids with IEPs, and Arch started taking kids without IEPs, depending on the needs of the student. So that's historically what the programs are about.
Who is Windrose serving now?
So currently, Windrose is serving overage, undercredit students. Juniors and seniors mostly, that was first year. Second year, this is our second year into Windrose, we have 1 sophomore, and we're looking to take another sophomore. So now we're coming down. So currently, it's overage, undercredit students.
So not necessarily students with IEPs?
No, they do take students with IEPs.
They do?
Yes, they do.
So they're back together again?
Yes, yes.
Currently 21 or
21 students, 21 students.
Eight of whom have IEPs.
Mrs. Raven, that was
So in rereading this report, I know we originally got it in May of 2017. It's on page 33 and 34, and you don't have to answer it tonight, but I think it's in context of the budget conversations. There are 16 support alternative programs. So I would like to get a sense, I know not all of them cost anything, but what's the criteria to go into any one of these programs? How do they compare and contrast? Because it's hard to understand exactly which program is serving what type of student just by reading like the couple of sentences that are on here. And I know we've over the years had a lot of questions about various support programs.
It took constant advocacy for many, many years to get an agreement with Wright Tech to have dual enrollment. And the new Windrose program is fantastic because of the job training / work-based learning opportunity for students. And I am encouraging you to take advantage of all the offerings at Wright Tech where it may fit a student's passion or interest or future career.
Yes, I'd like to ask, knowing from the budget that we're leaving St. Catherine's, where is this program going? I'm not going to ask you the cost, I've asked that as part of the budget. Where's this program going physically, and how are we meshing it into what we already have? Because Mrs. Raven put together a number of other programs that may be overlapping in some way. I'm thinking about a Venn diagram.
Well, some of those programs, and I'm not going to get into them, but on 33 and 34 are not really programs, they're services, so there is a difference. So we can define those for you. So they're not all programs. So that's a difference. In terms of where we're going, I think we're in discussion. We met last week, I can't remember, 2 weeks ago. So we've been in discussion talking about the best place. And at this point, I don't think we have a definite spot, although we are looking at all options.
Mrs. O'Neill.
A couple of things. When I was reading the reports, there is no percentages that say indicators of success. It says we're going to collect data and then make a decision. So it's sort of like a company saying, well, we're going to produce this product and then we'll decide whether it's successful or not. Seems to me you set goals beforehand and there's no goals, there's no, it's not, anyway, so there's no goals. Also, I understand that forensic theme is no longer there.
No, that was the first year.
Which is unfortunate, but that you would have thought that one theme wouldn't have fit all those kids anyway to begin with, so that wasn't. The other thing I understand from a meeting I went to today is that the social worker was traded for a guidance counselor?
Yes.
And what was the logic to that?
At the time, the person who is the guidance counselor had been the guidance counselor there previously, and we moved a social worker there. When the shift changed to underage over credit, that credit piece became critically important. So the staff felt that giving up this guidance counselor took that whole piece out of the support to the kids. So the guidance counselors do counseling. So we looked at moving the counselor who had been there back so he could provide both counseling. He is also bilingual and he could deal with the credit situation, which was critically important to most of those kids. We are this year re-looking at that decision and deciding if we need to move back into a shared position, have both of them there part-time. But the decision was really around if it was just a social worker, we didn't have somebody there on a daily basis to work with kids in their credit status.
So I understand, talking to people in the Department of Social Services, that an important component of the program is sort of a work study, work experiences. Where are we, because this has been a question the board has asked for many years, where are we in cooperating and sending our students to Wright Tech? Because that would seem to be an ideal venue to get these kids the kind of training that they need so they can get jobs and then or get certificates and go on to Norwalk Community College.
One of the issues with Wright Tech is you have to leave Greenwich High School, Greenwich Public Schools, and get a Wright Tech diploma. Students from Greenwich don't want that. That's been a big obstacle for us.
We've heard that over and over again.
But it's true. But it's true. We met with them, and we want to work with them. It's not like we don't want to work with them, especially when they reopened. But it has been a barrier, and it's a true barrier. I'm not making that up. They have to leave here.
I know Dr. Gilday met with them last year, and I thought there was progress on that. So I think it's something that we'd like to revisit. And by the way, we as the board can decide who gets a Greenwich High School diploma. So it may be something that ought to be looked at. I think we've heard it over and over again. It's time to make some progress. All right. Anything else on this item? All right. Thank you very much. We know we asked for you at the last minute. We appreciate it. Okay, next up, food services. Mr. Hopkins, if you want to come down and give us a quick overview, I think we've got some questions for you. Hot mic.
Don't touch that. So I originally put in a written report on a food service update and some survey results from 2017. I believe it was the spring and the fall of that year. We're just reporting on that now, and but we've been acting on it for the last year and a half. So, but basically, I summarized most of the stuff through the 6 and 8 parent survey, the 6 and 8 student surveys, and then the K through 5 parent survey also. And if there's any questions that you have about the surveys and the financials.
Mrs. Raven and then. Yeah, why don't you ask one and we'll see where we are.
So I'm not sure the genesis of this report's not, I don't know that it comes back in this format at predictable times, but I thought what was absent was, like we have the menu for the high school, but what's absent is the menu for elementary school and middle school. So I just thought it was odd to include one school. And then we know that we are going to be increasing the amount of students that are on free or reduced lunch because they're being auto-enrolled. So just dialogue in the report on how that's going to financially impact food service.
Okay. State.
Strangely enough, I'm not going to talk about food, I'm going to talk about time. There were two things that stood out for me in this report. One is the time that students wait in line, and the second one is the time they're allocated to actually consume the meal. And the report gave us an encouraging, summarizing sentence that said we're working on that. But I would love some more thinking on if you could expand what solutions are possibly being worked on. How do you think we can encourage students to eat on campus and have enough time to choose the foods they want, consume the foods they want, and hopefully digest the foods they want?
Do you want to respond to all, John?
Oh, on the time thing?
You're just taking it.
The paragraph was brief, and there were a lot of things I can expand on, and I'd be more than happy to expand on those with more information. But like I said, it is a collaboration sometimes of the scheduling of the lunches, the queuing of the students. Are they coming down from class on time? Generally, like I said, we are fully prepared and ready to serve at the scheduled time for a lot of those classes. Sometimes they get held up. And we, 10 to 11 minutes, I guess, to get everybody through the line is our modicum. That gives them 20 minutes to eat before they head out. That's probably a little bit better than industry standard, I think. Yeah. We've also introduced a new register system last year, so they're trained on that now, and we can probably implement some other things on there in terms of student identification with pictures and things like that. So that'll help also in terms of that. In terms of the length of the schedule, I don't have control over that. That's obviously by the principals in the schools. Most of them now are 6 lunch waves at the elementary schools. Middle schools a little bit more erratic in their terms of scheduling. And we've always asked for some concessions on from certain principals. Can we work things out? But a lot of times it's got to do with academics and the scheduling of their school day. So I'm more than happy to work with that.
So I've got a question about the quality of the food. So having eaten the food in some of our cafeterias and surveyed it in many of our other buildings, and hearing from parents and some students who may or may not live in my house, what are we doing on the quality of the food? When was the last time we actually looked at what we're serving, changed it up in a significant way? I'm not just talking about the healthy options, but I'm basically talking about remaking the entire menu. What are your plans for this?
Like I said, we've last year was a sort of a transition year for us. We moved our K-8 manager up to the high school, and then we hired a new K-8 manager. They're both CIA chefs, so I feel we're going to get some progress with that. In terms of improving the quality, I would like to think if we improve the quality, we would see an increase in participation. Right now, we run about a 37% food cost, which is slightly below industry standard. If we push that up to a 40 to 42%, then we increase the cost. And we're wondering if the return on investment is something that'll happen. So we've been introducing more scratch meals in terms of that. The other thing is, you know that this program was decimated in terms of its payroll from 2005 through 2013, so we have one man for every station. So one of the things about the high school is it's a great opportunity for us to look at that satellite program there, because a lot of our scratch-made meals are produced there and then moved out to the schools where they're heated and things of that sort. So the problem is that entire station shuts down right at 11 o'clock when the high school's kids start to serve. So we have no back of the house people left in those positions. So a possible look at either hiring one more person part-time there or somehow shifting that labor around to keep that service working for us. But we've been to a few food shows. I've been talking with my new manager, Dave, about looking at new menu items and stuff. We recently partnered with the Yukon Fresh Vegetable Program. It's something they've been doing for 2 years, and we decided to sign on to that. So it's farm to school program. We're introducing vegetables and fruits from local farmers, so we're trying to source that out too. So in terms of revamping the entire thing, if I get a commitment, that's my problem always, is trying to find people on one side of the aisle saying, you know, reduce costs, bring this thing and break even. I have other people saying increase the quality, you know, but still do the financial results.
So I'll give you credit where credit is due, right? We're looking a lot better than we looked 2, 4, 6 years ago, right? I give you a lot of credit for that. But I'm curious, you mentioned benchmarking our food costs. Where does our labor cost fall when you look across Connecticut? I mean, these programs are not meant to be moneymakers, right? And we know every other district that has a food program struggles with this. Where does our labor cost sit? Where do our overall costs sit as compared to other districts?
Yeah, I would say our labor is probably $1 to $2 higher, sometimes $3 in every position that we staff. When you look at school districts like Westport, Fairfield, New Canaan, Darien, we're still higher than them in terms of our starting wages for food service workers. And then when you add in our benefit package for our full-time employees, that's primarily the bulk of our budget. $2 million in payroll, another $500,000 in benefits. So we're at $2.5 million right there on a $4 million budget. And you added 1.4 million in food. We're maxed out at that point. So that has become an issue. I know when I started here 24 years ago, I started, you know, at a very low salary, and we've been incrementing it up at 1 or 2% per year. And we have a lot of longevity in the program. So the payroll costs are high. They are town of Greenwich employees, are protected by a union. I don't set that wage structure, but I do have to work with it. So that is always the consideration. That if we brought in somebody from the outside, they would hire those employees back, but maybe at a reduced rate.
Mrs. O'Neill and Ms. Stone.
So I think quality is a rather subjective measure, and I think as our population of students becomes more diverse, I think that's even a harder target to say that you're going to keep everybody happy and eating what's in the cafeteria. So I personally would like to take, and I think I put this in my budget questions, I'd like to take a look at the last RFP that we did on this, see how it was worded, and see if we shouldn't do that again and finally put this topic to rest, whether or not we should outsource or we should continue doing it ourselves. I think that's a really important decision, and I think we should study it. I know we had at one time proposed putting money in the budget to do that, and then we took the money out. So I'm wondering if it just to get some closure on this that we do that. And another question later.
Mrs. Stowe and then
Yeah, along those lines, Barbara, I was just wondering how the rest of the state falls in terms of how many districts outsource versus do in-house like we do. And also, we've had the pleasure of hiring a new health and wellness coordinator this past year. Are they involved in this now? Because I see this falling under their purview.
I have not met that gentleman yet, but we do have a district-wide wellness committee, and we have yet to schedule a meeting this year, but he will be part of that. And we'll have our wellness policy that we have in place.
Ms. Dean.
In terms of board process, I think we're getting off track here. We have a food services committee. That committee is tasked with answering the question that was raised by Mrs. O'Neill and then recommending solutions. And I know that they're meeting tomorrow. I would hope that the work would take place in committee. That's where the thorny issues are worked out in general. Committee work is very important because they can examine issues in depth. And instead of having a superficial kind of conversation among all 8 of us, I'd like to hear from that committee.
Dr. Francis.
That's the question. I know that our high school is not part of the moment I can't remember the name of the National Lunch Program. Thank you. Is that a school-by-school decision, or does it have to be level like all elementary schools or all elementary middle schools? How does that work? So if you have one school that decided they wanted to try piloting something different, or they wanted to try and outsource at the elementary school level, does that conflict with our commitment for the other schools in terms of the lunch program and the reimbursement for the free and reduced lunch students?
It's a board decision whether to take a school off the program or not. So that would be your guys' decision on doing that.
And it doesn't break the commitment for the other schools, so you could choose to have one separate from the other ones, not just the high school, but another one.
You could do that. So.
Any other discussion on this item? Mrs. O'Neill.
Yeah, I'd like to, at some point, have some comments from the administration on how they feel about high school kids using Uber to deliver their lunch. It could be a safety issue in some ways, so it might be interesting to have some comments from the administration on that at some point.
All right, anything else? Thank you very much for coming, and obviously you've got work to do. Don't get rid of the tater tots, that's my favorite.
No, thank you.
Thank you. It's a throwback. All right, we're moving on to action items. First up is transfers, so Ms. O'Donnell, if you want to come on over. Unless those microphones work.
They do.
Oh, maybe Mr. Microphone. Excellent. Ms. O'Donnell, transfers.
It's working? Yeah, there we go. All right, we are submitting a couple of transfers for your review and approval this month. The most significant one is actually just moving the supplemental funds to each school. So that's the first item we see. I'm happy to take any other questions.
I do have a question about that first item and actually one of the other ones. So for the supplemental funds, are you telling me that all of the supplemental funds are actually used for salary lines?
That's for the additional resource of having, say, a tutor or a retired teacher work with those small groups of students based on whatever supplemental plan that the principals and the professional learning communities or their school data teams have determined would be best to meet the needs of those students.
My follow-up is, for some I see substitute pay, I see other salaries, I see teacher stipends. I think there's 4 categories. If this were in Excel, I probably would have sorted them.
So for the other salaries, that would be when they do teaching before school or after school. Substitute salaries, they may have a substitute come in and do that work because they have a substitute that works very well in their school, so they might have a substitute come in and then do some additional work. It's tier 3 work with those students during the day when they had additional time. So that's where it's different for each school depending on the plan that they've designed.
Any, Mrs. O'Neill?
So all this extra staffing is used before or after school, or some of it used during?
Some of it is used during the day. Some schools have found that it's better to do it during the day. Other schools have found that it works better for them and the students, not for them, but for the students before school or after school.
So aren't the teachers by contract supposed to be in their buildings to help students for what, 20, 30 minutes after?
I think it's 20 before and 30 after.
Right. So are we paying
I'm
people
not
to
sure what
fulfill
it is.
what's in their contract?
We'd have to go back.
I'd have to tell you what it, I don't remember exactly what it is. But that's not time that they are planning. This is a planned instructional period, so they would have to be compensated for that.
The other one I wanted to ask.
Right, it's for student achievements, for the supplemental report, which you get actually you got your report on it. And
We got
and
them. I guess the only thing that's missing here is you've got building code, so if I wanted to tie it back, I'd have to figure out what the building code was and tie it back to the SIP plan. Is that right?
This is tied back to the supplemental plan, and it may also apply to the SIP plan. But this is monies that are appropriated based on the student performance on their growth metrics.
In the future. I also wanted to ask about the telephone expense. I'm guessing that was last year, and we're now just paying bills. Is that the idea?
That's correct.
So we had the money outlaid for this, or
I'm sorry?
did we had the money set aside for this already?
We do have a telephone budget, yes.
And I would presume this is.
Do I have money set aside for the prior year expenses? No.
So this is eating into this current year's telephone budget. Is this going to come back and be an issue later? Like in May,
Yes,
when you
it's
tell me
eating
it is?
into the budget. Will it be an issue? I hope not. We'll keep a close eye on that.
Thank you. Other questions, Mrs. O'Neill?
I want to go back to that, the supplemental funds. There's other office expense for $795. What's that? If this is supposed to be teaching?
I'd have to go back and look at their plans, Ms. O'Neill, so I can get back to you on that.
And then,
Well, this is an action item tonight, so if you don't have the answer, I just want to know what the effect would be if we table that. So.
okay, but
Right.
I've had some other questions.
Mrs. O'Neill.
So we're transferring money. Is this the one where we're buying an X-ray machine? Is this the $15,000 for that?
For the research, science research program.
Right. So why is this coming in the budget cycle now?
John, are you able to speak to that?
The question is, why is it coming now as opposed to earlier in the year?
Or, yeah, have been budgeted for it.
Yeah, we determined, Andy Bramante is here as well.
It's all his fault.
It is, yeah. We determined that it was much easier to purchase this one item, this X-ray component to the scope, than use that for classroom supplies, which come very quickly with the research students, and it's very difficult to order them at the rate in which the students need those. This is one purchase that we feel like we can use it, that Andy can use in his research program.
So this, if I can summarize it, so this is an item that's come up because of a student project and this piece of equipment is needed for that. Just say yes.
Actually, yeah, I mean, in the past, last year we were able to get, last year we were fortunate enough to get an electron microscope donated from Hitachi. And that's probably got a value of about $200,000 that universities would kill for, and we got it for nothing. Prior to that, we would go down, collections of students, myself, would go down to Mount Sinai to make use of their electron microscope with this X-ray detector, which really enhances the process and is really used by all the students. So having the SEM, the natural progression would be to get that accessory for this one. If we didn't, we would still have that, going back and forth to Mount Sinai, where I'm out of school for a day, we're getting substitutes, and it's a difficult process.
I just wanted to have sufficient background so
Sure.
when this comes before the BET, we have all the answers.
Sure.
Thank you, and congratulations on all your good work.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Mrs. O'Neill, I just want to ask you, are you comfortable, or if you could make a motion, comfortable with moving forward the supplemental funding tonight?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess the answer is yes. So,
There was,
one more question for Mrs. O'Neill.
yes, I do. About, so, yeah. I have to find where to go.
Okay, so do we have a motion to accept the transfers? Dr. Francis, is there a second? Mrs. Olson, any further discussion? No? All those in favor of accepting the transfers? Passes 7-0. And sorry for raking over the coals, we're just trying to understand where the funds are being spent. All right, next up is the financial and staffing report. Ms. O'Donnell.
So we're submitting the financial report for month ending October 25th. We did highlight an area of concern related to special education instruction.
So I'll ask the question on that because this seems to be a perpetual motion machine. Where do we think we're going to end up this year? Knowing that we were $1 million over last year, I thought we'd increase the budget line. So where do we think we're going to land?
I think it's going to be a really tight year. This year, we are watching things a bit more cautiously than we did last year. I don't know where we're going to end. There are a couple of things that we really do have to keep an eye on, and obviously this is one of the categories. So we've been working with Ms. Ford and her department to try to project some of the costs in this category so that we could then work collaboratively on identifying where we're going to fund this item from and what things may have to be put on hold in order to accommodate this cost. I also just want to mention that we did include this item in the budget for FY20, so we're taking an opportunity to address it as best as we can going forward.
Yeah, I noted that's the only addition to the budget for FY.
That's correct.
Other discussion, Ms. Tatum?
I'd be interested in where we took the money last time when we had the $1 million overspend. As we build this year's budget, can we look to the same areas if we need to go and get some funding at the last minute? Because if I'm looking at this, Exhibit 3 of our packet, general fund revenue, if you look at the last column, it's concerning. Just Exhibit 3.
Okay, so the first part of your question was?
So we've already lived through an experience with a really tight scrape, I'd call it. And we had to go into other areas of the budget to cover the expenses. Now we're building a new budget. Everything's being tightened. So will we have the same areas to turn to? Should we find out in May that we don't have enough money left?
Okay, so in the past, what has been the trend or the experience is that most of our savings that we've been getting back has come from salaries. This past year, we did not see that, and in the 630 report, we provided that analysis by category, and so most of that savings came from other than personnel lines. This year, as we are obviously clearly aware that the special education costs are headed in the same direction, we are doing exactly that. We are looking at the transfer that we did at year end to cover the overages that we experienced last year in special education, to see if those savings exist again this year, and then we will have a discussion with the appropriate areas to see whether they are able to sustain the same reduction or savings again this current year in order to cover the costs, the overruns that we're seeing in special education. And they came from a variety of different places. You asked about the revenues, the remaining revenues. Right. But those are town revenues. We don't.
But you don't see any.
Right.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Ms. Raven.
My questions are in Exhibit 7. Can you explain, and it's just me not knowing, when something's 100% complete and there's still available budget, where does that go?
So when we manage our construction or capital projects and we say something is substantially 100% complete, we mean that it's substantially complete, that the space is being used as it is now intended following a renovation. It doesn't necessarily mean that our building's complete or that we haven't or that we've completed all of our punch list items, which might be just remaining items of smaller tasks that still need to be completed to fully close out the project. So it's basically in its closeout phase is what we mean when we say 100% complete, but you still see dollars there. We're trying to make a final determination on what we could give back or whether we have remaining costs to incur related to the project.
So when it's 100% complete and you've completed all your punch list and close out, the row will be gone.
The punch list would not have been completed. When we say substantially complete, you still have small items remaining.
So what removes a row?
When we've confirmed that there are no remaining invoices to be paid, and the work is actually fully complete, punch list, all invoices, everything, then we turn it over to town and we say, please close this project out. Then it would be removed.
I think on the first page, because you have a 2019 in the mix of the 2015s, like it was in calendar order, restroom renovation.
Oh, that's actually not accurate. That is a 2015 project.
And then 2019, since it didn't start yet, does that mean fiscal year 2019?
Yeah, we're in fiscal 19, so you should see those toward the end of the report.
So those are items that the money's already allocated for, but the work is yet to start.
Which ones?
The 2019s? Or we're considering this the 2019 year? So
Yeah,
we're in the 2019 year.
Right, so we're currently in
You're confusing me, Lori. It's still 2018. Screw up my checks. Year end 2019. Got it. Other questions? Ms. Stowe.
So, Lori, so I look, for example, going back to 2015, the digital learning program, for example, just to make sure I understand this. It says 94% complete, and that there's available budget of $56,000. So, are we looking? I don't understand. And then we get digital learning program every year, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, obviously. So is that $56,000 still there for some iPads that we haven't paid for or something from back in 2015? How would that work?
I can't specifically speak to the digital learning program. Okay. I do know that we are working with the department on trying to close these out. This actually the specific item I just sent to him within the past week.
Okay. Can I ask one other question?
You can, other than we're looking forward to hearing about that in December. Ms. Stowe.
So then if I go to 2019, move into this year, there is something, Cardinal Stadium feasibility study and construction, just so I understand this. Original budget, $200,000, available budget, $115,000, 0% complete. So how have we spent money but we haven't done anything?
Okay, so that's not really accurate.
Okay.
Right now, we are our traffic impact study consultant is in working on their scope of work. So I would say we are certainly more than 0% complete. And of course, this project began the prior year, and there was a separate budget for that. It's just not listed next to this. And it has a different project number.
Okay, that's helpful. Can I ask one more question?
Let somebody else.
Right, sorry, I'm playing the Barbara here. Kidding.
You're at the end. She's
Someone to
curious.
emulate. The only other thing I have is the 2019 HVAC. I can't believe I'm asking about HVAC. This is just the inverse, and so perhaps this is a mistake as well. Because the original budget's 125, the available budget's 442, and we're 80% complete. So maybe that's just inverse.
I'm sorry, which line are you on?
Sorry, I know, there should be like a number.
19160.
Thank you, 19160 HVAC, last HVAC, 2019. I know, it's the last capital expenditure page. The original budget's 125, it's backwards, I think.
So, yeah, I apologize for that. We are challenged with reporting on our projects because Munis does have these projects bundled, and so it's a very manually intensive process for us to provide the report. So it does just look like an error. I'll get you the correct number.
That's fine. Sure. I actually feel for you guys. You're probably making a better application. So just thank you.
Sure. And if I could just make one request for the next report, page numbers.
Okay.
Just helpful to us. It'll help us help you. All right, any other discussion on the financial and staff report? Can we get a motion to accept the report? Ms. Tozer, second. Ms. Dayton, you guys gotta be fast. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting the financial and staffing report? 7-0, thank you very much. And with that, we are at the agenda plan. I think Ms. O'Neill, you had something you wanted to ask.
Yes, I'd like to place on the agenda a discussion of the new magnet school regulation.
You probably want to do that before we take up the budget item in case there's any implication. So I guess if we added that to our December meeting, we would just have it in advance of the action on the budget. Yeah, that's the document that Ralph circulated, which made changes to the magnet lottery. We spell them procedures, now we call them...
It's the procedures.
It's the procedure, basically. Right, the procedures changed, so I think just a discussion on what changed and why.
Okay.
We do that. All right, any other items to add to the agenda plan? Kim, do you have anything?
Actually, I did just get a request today. Just so you are aware, we're going to be adding the next application for approval of playground and custodial equipment purchases for New Lebanon School. Tentatively for the December 20th meeting, it'll be ready. If not, then it'll come in January.
Just the genesis of that is that was not built into specs. I don't know if the presumption was they were going to try to reuse the equipment, which I've seen it, probably not a good idea. So that item will come to us. I'm hoping December because we want to have it ready for the new school. And I've seen the proposals, it's really cool. All right, any other items? No, so that's it for agenda plan. Dr. Francis, do you have a motion? Dr. Francis? Dr. Francis moves to adjourn. All those in favor? 7-0. Mr. Chair still absent. Thank you, everyone. It's the Jimmy Kimmel joke. We have that 85.